When you dream about going full time with your craft, what is it that comes to mind first? Long, leisurely days in the studio making whatever you dream of? Hours spent at the wheel in a flow state because after long last, you can work without interruption? Or maybe, just sleep because you finally get to make this work during the daylight hours rather than fitting it in on the nights and weekends and any little gap in between. I'm guessing none of us dream of responding to emails or the hours spent trying to source packaging materials from a new supplier because your usual go-to place is out of stock and is going to be out of stock for the foreseeable future, apparently. Or, dare I say, we don't dream of reclaiming clay. In the middle of my chat this week with Cara of Cara Mae Skincare and the Potter's Skin Butter that you might already know and love, Cara said something that hits to my core as a self-employed maker. What is the real job? Because odds are, not the thing you think it might be. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a less than good thing. You'll just have to listen to find out. Right after this quick word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Cammie, the purchasing manager at Amico, providing you with everything you need for clay. This episode is brought to you by Amico Brent. Find your favorite Amico glaze or Brent equipment at your local distributor. Happy glazing.
Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 13 years, Rebecca Ikes Cara. Hey, Cara, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here. We were, just before we hit record, I'm like, okay, now I have questions, even though I said I didn't have a plan ahead of time, but just in us chatting and you mentioning TV, all sorts of stuff, I'm like, wait a second, there's a whole different story here now than I thought there was going to be. So
That's funny.
before I get ahead of myself, how would you introduce yourself to everybody listening?
Hi, Rebecca, and hi, everybody. I'm Cara Steinbuchel, and I'm a potter now, and I also have a lotion business, and I make Potter's Skin Butter, which is a lotion for potters and people that work with their hands. I live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, the home of pottery in many ways in the United States, I feel like. Which is fascinating because you said potter now. So the lotion came before the pottery?
Not exactly, but I can tell you do you want to know?
Yeah. From the day you were born to, no.
Right? Exactly. Well, I kind of fell in love with pottery back in, I guess it was '01 when I went to Italy for like a study abroad. But my college didn't have pottery. So I came back and it was just this passion, but I didn't have an outlet for it. And then when I moved to Asheville, I started working in a pottery gallery and I was meeting all these local potters. I had a chance to practice a little bit, just a tiny bit in the back of that shop. There was a tiny studio. And then when I was there, that's where I started making lotion. And then I got busy, making lotion and finding gallery jobs and day jobs. And then only after the pandemic was I able to start actually selling. I've only been selling for 1 year.
And how, because what was funny is I found you on Instagram, I feel like a long time ago, and was following you. But then the ladies at the Village Potters were like, you should talk to Cara. And I was like, well, I've been following Cara, so yes, this is totally fine.
Oh.
So when did you get connected with them?
So I guess, that's a long story too. When I was working in that gallery, there were actually 2 of those potters that used to make dinnerware sets together, and we would sell their dinnerware sets. So I really got connected with a ton of potters. It was back in '04, and the place was called Mud Hunter. Mm-hmm. So I met some of them then, and then I met Sarah, who is in charge of, she's the owner of Village Potters, the head person, the founder. Mm-hmm. And I got to go to her studio and she let me show my lotion to her people in her class. And so we kind of made friends, and we've been friends now probably 20 years. So then in 2017 is when I started to finally take classes there. And I was working in their gallery. They were like, will you be the official lotion of the Village Potters when they opened. So it's always been tight with them.
That's fantastic. The official lotion. I like the idea of official lotion of Potters. That feels...
I know. I was like, didn't know that was a thing.
I think you're making it a thing. I don't know it of anyone else, but it also completely makes sense if you live anywhere, particularly in the winter. Like, I don't know if I'm as staunch about it in the summer, but in the winter, my God, it's painful.
Yeah, definitely.
When you came back from Italy and you were like, were you always interested in getting gallery jobs and kind of thinking that was the way to work in the arts, like as an adult after college? Or is that just kind of what fell into it and the lotion was an accident? Or just how did that kind of transition happen?
That second one, I think. So I was more like where I wanted to live. So during college, I was very like, I was interested actually in art therapy. That was my plan for like job, quote job. But I always wanted to make it as a professional artist. But it was like that thing where you're like, I don't know if that's realistic. I had professors tell me it was not realistic. And so then I moved to Asheville, and, that seemed like a great way to try to get a first job. And I actually slept like on my friend's couch and I took this gallery guide and would walk the streets and go to each gallery and hand them resumes. And that's kind of how I started. And one of those was that pottery gallery. It took a little while for me to get in there. But at first I worked in an art store and a chocolate shop. And I built an AutoZone with a temp agency. But eventually,
You built an AutoZone? Like physically?
Like installed inside the building. They like deliver a truck of the stuff and you just like put the shelves in and...
Okay. I'm picturing you like under a car all of a sudden to where I'm like, well, I can see where mechanics would also need lotion. Like,
They do. They do. And that was all before the lotion, So
how did the lotion get started?
So then I got into Mud Hunter. I was just walking down the street, saw they had a help wanted sign and went in, and it was just like an on the spot. She was like, yes, you're the person. I was the co-manager. The owner of the business was also a potter, like for fun. And she ran out of her favorite lotion and she asked a local maker, Fairy Made Soaps. She's a really great businesswoman. She's been super nice to me the whole time. She asked her, would you make a lotion? And she's like, I make soap. I'm not really into emulsions, which is what a lotion is. Mm-hmm. And then the owner turned to me and she's like, well, would you do it? And I was like, I took a lot of biology classes. Like, I like lab. I like science. Sure. I like baking. Sure. I can measure things,
Wait, do you bake lotion? Now I have like so many questions about the science of lotion.
But we do like measure it in grams. We weigh it all out. So very much like glaze, like the way you would make a glaze from dry ingredients. So no, you heat it, melt it, emulsify it.
Yeah.
But I just tried it out. And that owner was like, and when you pay me back I'll buy the equipment. When you pay me back, you'll have a business. And I was like, I never wanted a business. I was thinking like, but okay, sure, I'll have a business. So it kind of fell in my lap, but then I made it more. I just kind of like kept nurturing it. And then I was like, oh, this was a good idea. Thank you. Thank you. And I've tried to reach out to her to be like, Mary Helen, thank you.
Right. Well, because it seems, from the outside looking in, it seems very full-time at this point. Is that correct in the assumption or?
Yeah, my partner and I both work on it. So yeah.
It's you're full-time. Both full-time employed with the skincare line?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Me full-time, and she's like got some other side stuff and then also doing it.
Yeah, that's still like that. It's not like she's like 9 to 5 coming home after an office job and like, okay, fine, I'll help you package things.
Yes, exactly. So she went to culinary school. And so she actually was like production manager for all these different companies. And I guess I won since we're married. I guess she decided she would stick with me. And I was like, sorry, other companies, other businesses, but I'm very grateful.
I was thinking you won also just in like the eating department. I appreciate that I married someone who's a much better cook than I am.
Yes, it's amazing. She's very fast, very good with flavor, very we wouldn't have a CSA if I wasn't married to her.
Yes. Like, I don't understand how someone looks in a fridge and I look and think, oh, we don't have anything. We have to go to the store. Yes. And 20 minutes later, there is a meal made. And I'm like, but what? Yes. With what ingredients? I don't understand.
Exactly. Like, for example, this week, it was, I think, Wednesday. Michelle was like, we don't have any food in the house. And I was like, oh my gosh, if Michelle says we don't have any food in the house, I need to go to the grocery store.
It's barren. It's literally empty.
Yes, because she can make a meal out of anything, like a beautiful meal.
That's fantastic. I was just reading, I'm pausing because we've got a couple of questions from our community members because people had already known about you, which I always think is exciting.
That's wonderful. Yay.
Right? Because we're all putting this stuff out on the internet, and to know that people are actually, to have that kind of connection is like, oh, this works.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's so nice.
So Bill just says that he loves the tangerine scent, so that you know.
Hi, Bill.
And he's curious about how it differs from other hand treatments and when it should be applied and how often. I also know that Bill's in Florida, so he's got humidity on his side, I think, for skincare.
Oh, that is good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So many questions. Let's see. Okay. So it differs from other hand lotions. One, it really absorbs really well. So it's not greasy. And then it lasts a long time. It has humectants. So like the glycerin and the aloe that are in it attract moisture from the air around you to like seal it into your skin. To mimic, like if you have humidity, it will draw the humidity to your hands. But if you don't, it will make it like you're in that, summertime humid environment.
Yeah.
And it makes your hands soft. And then it does all that, but then it also has like botanical ingredients. So like shea butter, aloe, macadamia nut oil, essential oils, cocoa butter. I had found the way I started it was I talked to my grandpa, my mom. My grandpa was a mechanic or did that for a hobby. He was also a Wichita lineman, like repairing the power lines after the tornadoes in Wichita, Kansas.
Only slightly dangerous, by the way,
only slightly.
Everyone.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. And then my mom's a nurse. So their hands were super dry. So I started being like, okay, I'm going to make this lotion. What works? And my hands were very dry as well. So what works? And my grandpa recommended Cornhuskers lotion. So I looked at Cornhuskers lotion. I saw some of the ingredients. I'm like, okay, I see why that works because it's a humectant, but there's a lot of junk in there. Like, not to diss that one, but it's just that I was like, I would like to improve this. And I would like to put shea butter, aloe, like some really nice, juicy, like botanical ingredients in there to improve it. Can it work? Same for what my mom recommended. And so I tried that out. So that's it's like that hybrid of the hippie stuff that's got good stuff for your skin and the like man stuff that works or whatever, the like stuff my grandpa swore by.
Yes.
And eventually he did get to where he was loving the lotion. I would just send it to him every holiday and every chance I could. And
maybe not with the tangerine, though. Maybe we kept the extra.
He liked the unscented. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I can see that. My grandpa was a farmer, so I'm like, I'm not seeing him going down the route of,
Yeah.
Well, I've got some assumptions, but I want you to clarify them because hearing you talk about the science of it all, I mean, science was just something comfortable for you to kind of like dig into the research, or you had any kind of training? Because one of our other members, Yvonne, thought that she was remembering you had some kind of pharmaceutical background, but that could be wrong.
Oh. No.
You're just really
thanks,
good.
Yvonne. Yeah. No, I was going to be a doctor and artist. That was my original money plan, was to be a doctor and artist on the side. Then I was like,
because doctors have a lot of spare time. Yeah.
I know. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. Yeah. But I was going to get a flat in New York, and I was going to be a doctor 9 months of the year, and 3 months of the year I was going to live my real life, which was being a painter in New York and making it, because you don't need all year to do that. No. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So then I took a lot of biology classes, and my mom being like a nurse, it's just like was always kind of literate in science. So it was comfortable. And then I'm very precise. So I didn't mind labs and all of that with weighing things. Not a big chemistry fan, but biology, yes.
Which is ironic because now you're a potter, which is all chemistry.
It is. It's totally, yeah. But it's the fun part. It's the better part.
Well, and how many, I have to assume there were many iterations of getting to where you are now with the actual product, right? In terms of, or you're always iterating.
It was 6.
Okay.
It was the 6th batch. That was the product that is now. And of course, some updates over time as safer preservatives became available, things like that. When I started making it in 2004, almost 20 years ago, it was just there were different ingredients available. So, but basically the same formula since 2004.
That's amazing. 6 iterations is not very many to me. I mean, that's pretty quick.
It was really quick. I couldn't believe how quick, but I just kept, I would be like, well, what do you think? And the first ones would be like, oh, it's greasy, or oh, I don't like that smell. And the first one was tangerine.
That's awesome. Is there because I think this is kind of in alignment with where else Yvonne was going, just in terms of curious on the business side of things. Well, I'm going to go where my brain's going first, and then I'm going to loop back into her question here. Is there a seasonality also? I'm curious about, I think of selling lotion as a much more retail product business experience or business model or whatever you want to call it. And I think pottery is that in some ways, right? Like we have to kind of think about the fact that, oh, Mother's Day is coming up. Do I have a lot of vases I can promote? Or,
right.
We sell a lot of our giant mugs in leading up to Father's Day or, so we do have some of that retail schedule, but maybe not quite as much as a product that's perceived more as a product that you're buying and you're using and you're consuming and you're replenishing. So I'm curious kind of what those worlds are like for you and the timing of all that.
Like the seasonality of it.
Yeah. Or even just the business model of it, I imagine, in terms of the connections you're making with people, or if it's much more kind of like I'm buying this, I'm consuming it, I'm buying it again.
Right. I think it's two different things. One is definitely wholesale, so that's year round. And that is one of the best places. Well, there's two, but one is like pottery shops. So like what I mean is supply stores, pottery supply stores. And it's a leap to get pottery supply stores to see lotion as a supply. And there's some other products that they may stock for hands, but they're like more mass produced. And I'm like, this is different. Try it out. I'm also a potter. Like, trust me, like, please try it. And then, you need that person in the shop that is the customer that uses it, or like one of the employees that is like, hey, customer, this is great. Please try it. So like High Water Clays does really well with it because they all use it and, promote it that way. So I'm very grateful for those places. And then when I'm in there replenishing their stock, I can shop for tools. It's amazing. It's the best.
It's very efficient.
Yes, exactly. And then like clay centers. So right now, I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm in the independent study program at Village Potters. So it's a teaching center and a gallery and studios. And so in the gallery, they have a few supplies. They have all of the resident artists' pottery. And then they have our lotion, like just sitting there for people to try. And that's great because the customers from the, the tourists come in and they're like, why is there lotion in here? And they're curious. And then it's also the people in the studio really need it. So that's a really good location type of setup that is good for us. So anyway, wholesale, all of that. And then I definitely have that spike, it's a cold season product in particular. Obviously, Mother's Day is a great time and things like that. But the holidays are just by and far like we make, I don't know the exact percentage, maybe 70 to 80% of our money in November, December. And when I started to do pottery, this is so funny. I think I'm realizing it's funny. I was like, you know what? I want some money the other months of the year. So guess what? I'm going to do pottery and I'll sell it in February, April, August, September. And I'm like, you know what? I think actually those people wanted it Christmas too. Oh man, what have I done?
That was literally going to be my next question of like, so how in the world do you manage? Because this is my world too, right? I'm like, I'm going to do less photography work by getting more into pots. Oh, wait. Because literally September and October and November, everything happens all at once. Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to pick the markets that we're doing this September are picked because they're the only weekends I didn't have weddings, right? And so literally I'm like looking up at my calendar right now for people who can't see me. Every single weekend is something, it's the 2nd is a wedding, the 9th is a wedding, the 16th and 17th is a market, the 23rd is a market. Like it's until the middle of October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the seasonality thing is just, I don't know. Tell me you have a solution because we need one.
Right. I know. Not yet. I mean, I'm just even realizing the question, because it's just like really, I keep like being like, what am I doing? And then I'm like, chill out is my first year, literally 1 year of selling pottery. Like I am figuring it out, and I think what I'm realizing as, it's just talking about it with Michelle yesterday, it's like the trouble of doing two things at once. And I think I'm realizing you can't, of course, they say that, but it's like really just like press the gas on one, take it off, press the gas on the other, learning how to alternate, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is that with the lotion, is it more feasible to batch a much larger quantity in July or even August, which is the time that we're recording this, and kind of have that stockpiled away and say, okay, like this is the quantity I have. This is the quantity I need to sell to get that 70% of revenue or 80% of revenue to where like we're financially viable, but like not push yourself to like, oh, if we're starting to sell out in mid-December, do I have to scurry and make more in that last week? Or can you just, that's the quantity, I made it in July, we're done, you can focus on pots? I don't know.
I mean, that would be lovely.
As it's coming out of my mouth, I'm like, yeah.
Well, every year we get better. So in the past, we didn't stockpile enough. So every year we've gotten better about planning. Of course, the year that we planned the most and we're like, we know exactly what to make when. Guess what year that was?
2020.
So then we were like, okay, hold on a minute. So we're starting to get to where we plan more. But last year we pre-made more lotion than we ever had, which was great. And then we still ended up in the spot. Of course, we're still making lotion in December because you can't know exactly what size people would buy of what scent, and we can make it and scent it as we go, or whatever, but you just can't predict all of that. And so we do end up making some last minute batches. But what ended up happening last year is I was not in the studio for the entirety of like November to December. And it was, wait, this isn't good, And then we also have bookkeeping to do. As you're selling, you need to log it somewhere. And Michelle is the person that does that. In addition, we have a bookkeeper, but she puts it in first, So she was behind on bookkeeping and doing bookkeeping at our Christmas holiday. And so this year we're like, no, I think we really need somebody to help us, like somebody to come in and just help, even if it's seasonal, to even just fill orders, But we do try to do as much early as we can.
I have to imagine that given what I've heard from village potters in conversation and how much of a community of pottery there is in Asheville, that like somebody listening to this is going to be like, I'm going to come in December, like just give me like 3 jars and I'll pack boxes for a day or something. Like I just can see where that could be such a communal kind of, tapping into your people that already exist. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm.
No, it's so true. When I'm like working with other potters, I'm like definitely like, you would be good, and also people to go to markets with me. Like I'm having my first markets where I'm selling pottery and lotion. And it's very scary just to put I bring my lotion. Come on, buy the lotion. Great. Okay, here I am putting my pottery. I'm like, here's my little heart on a shelf. And do you wish to buy it? Like, no. Okay, I will take a break and go cry. It's like, it's so vulnerable. So the people I want with me there are either my friends or potters or potter friends. And one of those potter friends is just leaving town. So I'm like, oh, I have to find new people, Yeah. But it's all like, these are the people I like to make pots with and the people that would be great to help with the business.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that community.
Well, I just realized that people are going to probably wonder how you got into did you get into the wholesale intentionally in the beginning or, because sometimes it's seen, I'm really stumbling over my words today.
You're good.
The coffee has not kicked in before. We're going to take off 10 a.m. as an option in the future for scheduling.
Oh, I love it.
It makes sense to me for you to do wholesale. Because it makes sense to me in terms of you can sell more lotion to less people, like to less clients. So as far as customer service goes and all of that lowers your time on that front. And hopefully as things are systematized, frees you up to make more pots. But on the flip side, wholesale can feel really scary because all of a sudden you're talking about having these like mass orders or relationships with stores or like the legality. And so I imagine some people are kind of wondering like how you got into that, how that started and how that worked.
Trying to remember, I guess, once again, I love to walk. And I used to walk to my job, like at Mudhunter. So when I was like, oh, maybe besides Mudhunter selling directly to the potters when they drop their work off, they would come pick up a jar. So they sell it. Maybe another store would sell it. Maybe the salon, or there was actually like a women's sex toy store that like also had spa products and bath products. And they were a great like first wholesale place. I basically would walk door to door and bring samples to places. And just like some did consignment, but a number of them started to just want to buy it. And I don't remember who I talked to about how to do the pricing. And originally, to get it in a clay store, I was putting it in just a studio with a little box next to it, and you could drop a check or cash. And then I kept kind of approaching it's called High Water Clays, and they're one of my best customers. And I finally had somebody that worked there that was like, maybe I can get you in. And I was like, please, please, please. And so I think they were one of the first bigger wholesale places. I haven't had too much trouble with like giant orders. I mean, if anybody wants a giant order, let me know and we will do it. What I did was I started with like my wholesale price list. I put like lead time of 2 to 3 weeks because we make them in small batches. But I've actually never had to do that because, gosh, for one thing, like I said, Michelle, she's like the production specialist, the COO, the operations officer. She's like very good at production, very good at not just making it, but getting it into jars, getting it labeled like so fast. So it helps to have somebody that is really good at that end. I don't know if that helps the question.
It does. And I'm smiling because Francesco and I literally, like, I preach systems all the time, right? That is my happy place. That is how I sleep well at night. I don't understand how other photographers don't have project management systems and all of these things. But when it comes to pottery, I just the other day when we were having lunch, I was like, okay, well, what if, because we're starting a wholesale listing on some of those like aggregate websites or whatever. And the same problem of the seasonality of there's only so much time that we have to produce. And you're going to have the same problem in terms of the demands of wholesale and the demands of direct to consumer purchasing are all still going to happen at the same time.
Yes, and they do.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, what if I start making some things that are hand built because we only have one wheel. We have a tiny little studio in our house. So I was like, okay, so like I could make ring dishes or some, little hand built things that I can just use like the little table that we have in the studio. So you can use the wheel. And he was like, no, this is not, that's it. Because he is a production potter. He's like, if we're going to do it, this is the way production works. This is what you need. This is like, we don't have that kind of space. And I was like, but I can help more. I can be more involved in the studio, whatever. And he was like, that's not production. That's not gonna, you're not gonna make 10 ring dishes at a time. Like, that's just not sensible. And I was just like, darn it. Like, production wise, it makes sense, but I like turn off the systems in my brain for the sake of clay for some reason. There's like a detachment.
Oh, and he's like, no, we need to stick with the efficient systems and the ring dishes won't be efficient.
Yeah. Well, just like we do not have the space. I mean, he's already maxed to have 2 people in this little room at one time. Like the table I was talking about, like I can use as somehow magically becoming a hand building table is literally like as the shelves in front of him fill while he's throwing, then the next board goes onto that table. So like it wasn't going to.
No, I got it. That is, yes.
It's just not going to happen. So.
Oh yeah. And sharing a space, that thing. Oh man. I'm like sitting in the office right now and I'm looking at our towers of boxes of jars because we have to buy ahead because of supply chain and all of that. You have to be sure,
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, it's just funny. I know about sharing the space for sure. We have the tables that we use for production are also my market tables. They're folding tables. So when, there's no producing lotion while I'm at a show, I have the tables with me. And
yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. Like you have to then like make sure everything is finished in time to pack up to go to a show. I mean, that's a lot to manage.
Yeah. I mean, luckily Michelle gets the lotion it's done. But, it can be a lot to manage. The thing where it really gets tight is there's this one week, the week, I'm sure it's everybody's crazy week. It's right after like the Black Friday week. So it's like stores have just started to be like, oh, wait, we need more lotion at the same time we're sending out all the orders that we did. And then there's a show that next week and we need lotion for that show. And that's the week where I'm just like, we are going to have somebody help us this year. Like we have got to, because we like to walk, we like to not work at night. It's just, luxuries of life, weekends,
Sleeping? What are you talking about?
Exactly. So, yeah.
So are you producing everything out of your house or just logistically?
Right now, yeah.
How's everything? Yeah.
But then the pottery is all at the Village Potters.
That makes sense. I mean, look, the longer you can make it work without other overhead, I think it just gives you so much more flexibility to have that life, to not work at night, to do other things.
It totally does. It totally does. I mean, of course, we dream of like a production facility situation, but I feel lucky we can do it here. So I'm also fascinated, and maybe this just gets boring for people, so we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, because I'm just thinking about all of the sourcing, and you mentioned supply chain just for jars and boxes, like, oh my gosh, yes.
Figuring all of that just seems insane.
Yeah, this is also like one of Michelle's specialties. I was doing it for a long time. One of the current things is these blue jars that we use are back ordered till September. So we had to be like, okay, but if they say they're coming in, we purchased them a long time ago. They say they're coming in, but we need a backup plan. So our backup plan, this is going to be like revolutionary, nobody knows, but is like purple jars. They're close to blue. I guess it could work. So, but we hope to not use them. And then if we don't use them, they're in sealed bags, we can return them. But you just have to be like ready for, Michelle said the perfect thing. She was just like, supply chain is a combination of like not completely freaking out, but also being prepared,
Right.
Yeah.
But also knowing it's going to go to shit.
Yeah. I mean, there were people last year at the companies when we would like call and be like, so you're out of this. And they're like, well, the good news is, and they say the thing I say never to say, just don't ever say it. Why would you say it? Is it won't get any worse. And I'm like, why? Why did you say it? Don't say it. Like, just don't do that.
Did we not all learn, like, 2020? Like, you don't know.
So it's interesting. But she does a great job of, like, keeping on top of all of that. And it's just, I have ADD and I don't mind to share that, but, like, I need help with, like, staying on top of, like, all the supplies and stuff. I've done it for a very long time. And I did pretty well with it, actually. But it's so nice to have her just like monitoring that and every single production, looking at the levels of everything and what we need to buy and staying on top of all that. It's nice.
Before she was involved with everything, were there certain systems or things you put in place to help with that? Because I feel like that is, I hear from a lot, I think the arts in general attract a lot of neurodivergence, right? Like it's either you're also able to see the world differently and so therefore maybe are just more creative naturally, but also then when you are trying to make this, not trying to, you are making a living from this, like there's this pressure and then there's this need for systems and things that can kind of collide with that I hear from a lot of people that I think will be like, yes, okay, this is my life.
Yeah, it's true. I think I just stumbled through it. I mean, like, just trying to figure it out. I definitely had one of my worst things would be like consignment accounts where I would have trouble filling the orders. And not to say that that's all due to like ingredients not arriving in time, but that's an example. And then Michelle remembers like the first year that we lived together, that Christmas, just me being just so stressed out. And I wasn't full time at that time. And Michelle had another job. But I think that's what she says, where she was like, you need help. And I'm like, yes, I need help. And, there is no, I mean, people ask for an order and she has it like in a bag ready to go for me to take in my car. She'll even put it in the car. Will you deliver this wholesale order? And then when the retail orders come in, there's a clipboard and there's little cards. One of my favorite rituals that I do with each order is write a card to the person. It's just like special. It's like a gratitude practice to me. And I don't know if they read them, but it means a lot for me to thank them, So she has a little clipboard with my stack of cards, the names. She's even gotten so far now as to see, has this customer ordered before? So I know where we're starting from. And I just sit down in the morning after my coffee and write the cards. Michelle takes the card back, puts it in the box, tapes it up, and gets it out to the post office. I'm just like, it is a dream for me, like the way that she has things running. So yeah, it's nice.
I think this is the perfect example of the fact that when people are watching other people on the internet, it seems like it's this individual hero doing everything on their own, crushing it at life, or whatever stupid phrase we want to use.
Right.
When in reality, most people, I don't think it is possible to do what any of us are doing to survive as a small business in especially the United States as an island. Like that, the only way to do it is to have people and community and support. And I mean, emotionally also, but like pragmatically to find people with different skill sets that can allow you to grow.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like your crew, and even if your crew is one person. And I think about that a lot, and I try to like thank her on social media and all this stuff. And then there also comes the fact that she's a big introvert. So it's not like she's like, please give me the spotlight. She's like, I'll be back at home while you go to that show. And, so it's interesting. Like, but yeah,
the packaging is actually her happy place.
Yeah. I think, somewhat. Her happy place is the woods. And so I think that's also finding some help to like help with the packaging. But I think she enjoys also that sourcing, supplying, planning. She's really good at all that,
I think it's also something, and maybe this is just because it's on my mind as we get into more and more of working together in a business. Like, I think a lot of people will hear us talking and think, oh my gosh, how special, how amazing would it be to be able to like have a business that's successful enough to where my partner we can join together and we can get out of these other jobs and whatever. But I also, and I don't want to throw either of our loved ones under the bus, but like, just to peel back the curtain a little, there's like pros and cons to having radically different skill sets and working together and sharing a bed.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, just like, going through like, especially the pandemic, I feel like, well, the pandemic, living together, working together, not the best time for me as far as like, for us, it was too much. It was too much together. I think everybody got too much of whatever their thing was. Having kids, not having kids, whatever. We don't have kids. But it was, too much togetherness. And so me getting into this independent study program has actually been great for our marriage because I have a place to go. And then she can have the office back. And some days she's just like, okay, are you ready to go to the studio? And I'm like, lovely. Yes. Yes. Are you sure you don't need help? She's like, I'm sure,
It's like the polite way of being like, I need you to leave without telling you.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yes. It's great. And I'm a big extrovert. So it gives me that social outlet. That's what I love about like the community studio. But yeah, I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, like I post something for like our anniversary or something. Everybody's like, oh, look, the perfect couple. And like, we also fight. I hope like, it's normal to fight. And especially when you're, maybe talking about jars or, something that is not normally part of a marriage, like that you're talking about these subjects. And then you have to try to not talk about work all the time,
That's exactly where my brain was going, because literally 2 nights ago, Francesca was like, do you want to go out? Like very impromptu. We're going to go out to one of the restaurants we enjoy, like, shower ahead of time, put on a little mascara, like
nice,
kind of unintentional date night. And we sit down and I start to ask him a question and he just cuts me off and is like, we're not talking about work and we're not talking about house renovations. Like those are the parameters.
Yes.
And so it got silent for a while though. Yes. And I was like, okay, so what do you want to talk about?
Yes.
He was like, I don't know, but just not those things.
I've literally Googled, okay, things to talk about with your spouse. Because it's like, I think a lot of other couples might be like, how was work or whatever, Yep. And it's not that same thing when you work together. You cannot talk about work at all. So then you're not talking about your day. Once again, it helps when I go to the studio. So we can at least be like, okay, what happened at the house? What happened there? But also we just got our house painted. So I know like, gosh, to not talk about that is like it. Yeah. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I had some family friends of ours, I distinctly remember they both retired in the same year. And I remember Linda, hi Linda, whose son is also a potter, which is funny that this is all connecting. She was saying like they had to learn how to be together again because like if you were having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, you couldn't sit down at dinner and say, "How was your day?" Because it was like, well, we were together all day, so we know how your day was.
Yes, exactly.
So maybe
Exactly.
we're
It is
just
like
going to be
that.
very prepared for old age.
Maybe so. Yeah, we're like, we know how to. I feel like I always say that we're practicing for retirement because pottery, and then Michelle's big hobby right now is pickleball. And she's one of the younger pickleball players out there with
Mm,
the crew she plays with. But yeah,
that's
it's good things to
hilarious.
do in retirement.
Or the spoiler is that we're all never going to actually be able to
I know. There's always that fear. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
retire.
I've always said pottery was my retirement plan. So I'm just trying to get started a little early so I can be good by the time I retire. I mean, I feel like I'm good, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good.
None of us ever actually think the standard always moves, right? Because I bet like what you would consider good a year ago or when you started at the Village Potters or whatever, like you're there already, but now you know more. It's an always moving scale.
It is. And then becoming efficient is the next thing. Like, even when you like what you're making, it's like, but how can I make 10?
Well, what does that look like for you? Either like in a dream world or what reality is like right now? Because I mean, I know just as soon as we start to add complexity, as soon as you have the skincare line, but then also pots, or then also, like just that one other thing, you start getting pulled in all different directions. So is there kind of are you able to find a bit of a routine to like make sure you're keeping time for these different things? Or is it just kind of, seasons, bigger chunks of time where you're like, okay, I can slow down on lotion right now and I get to spend every day at the studio, but then in November, there's no time for making? Or what's that kind of look like for balancing both?
I think that is true. There can be these big chunks, big pushes of creative energy and time in the studio. I do try to have, like, I was for a while being like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday studio, Tuesday, Thursday, lotion, which sometimes I call it business, but then I'm like, wait, it's all business now. It's all the business. But so, yeah, I can, if I have just a blank week, I can be like, yeah, these days I'm going to try to go to the studio, and the morning is good for me. So try to go then. And I say try because, like, it's, we work for ourselves. So there's just this temptation. It's like, I just need to sleep in a little longer or whatever. Or, like the house is being painted and I need to talk to the painters, and that takes up half the morning and all that stuff. So, and then there's also the seasonality. Like if I take a really intense class, that's like all I'm doing for weeks. Or, of course, when it's like glazing and firing time, that's all you're doing for a few weeks. Like I said, I hope to get back to the studio more this holiday season than I was able to last time. But really, truly near the holidays, it's like live, eat, breathe lotion. Hopefully not breathe lotion. That doesn't sound ideal.
I mean, tangerine is nice. Tangerine is
Yes.
good.
Inhale. Yeah.
I was like, they're lovely scents, so this is all a positive.
Thanks. Yeah, the herbal mint is my favorite.
Nice, nice. I'm asking these questions knowing they're impossible because I'm asking things that I'm trying to do for myself that still are like not happening, 100% not happening.
Right. I know, totally. And I felt like maybe you were asking me, like, do you have a plan? And I'm like, absolutely not. I mean, I really try. I have coaches. I have a mastermind group. We talk about business. But, I'm an artist mind person. And, like I can do it. But I really do feel like it's a lot of dreaming, a lot of like positive intention and, abundance mindset, that type of thing. And, crossing fingers right now. I feel like there's a lot of crossing fingers and, just like trusting that it's going to work out and just kind of like going with it. I have to remind myself it's my first year having both things at the same time in a, selling situation. And, people spend their entire lives working this out. Like, I can't just be like, I'm going to figure out in a year,
Oh, but we still tell ourselves that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Goals. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do. We're like, oh, yeah, I should have it figured out. But I guess I am really grateful to start with the pottery selling that I don't have like that 9 to 5 day job where you just can't be flexible with it. Like I do have the flexibility. So that is, at least there's that, and I enjoy it all.
Which always feels like, I don't know about for you, but for me, it feels like a little bit of insult to injury, because the outside looking in, we're supposed to have all sorts of flexibility, but then sometimes that just means that I'm working for 12 hours,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
it's like, this is supposed to be flexible, and I can take an appointment at 1:00 on a Wednesday, or, there is that manage people coming in and out of the house when we have a project going on and different things like that. But like, that also then means that you're the one doing all of the work, or you and Michelle, or, like.
Yeah. You're making up for it. If you take that time, then you're the one that's then making up for it. If we take a midday hike, which, say winter, which is one of our busiest seasons, sometimes the best time to hike is 2 p.m. because it's the warmest and sunniest it's going to be. Well, that means we're working that night. That means we're working, early that morning. That means we're working that weekend, but you just have to make those kind of like, it's flexible, but yeah, like you say, you're going to be the one filling in those gaps then to make up for the flexibility.
And I think that's the hardest thing, at least for me right now with photography, is like the time of year that it's the busiest is the time of year in the Midwest that it's the nicest, right? Like, I'm not going to go work in the yard in January. Like,
right.
And so it's one of those interesting things that maybe people don't necessarily think about, like, how are the realities of this business going to fit within what I want life to look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love, one of my favorite things to say is like, what is the real job? When you take on this job, what is the real job you're doing? So like, I want to make lotion equals, I want to fill jars, label jars, seal jars, put jars in boxes. And, like, do you know that that's what you're signing up for the rest of your life? Or like, I want to make lotion equals, you will never again have a chill Christmas holiday season where you go to parties with friends and, you whatever, throw up your heels, like, and spend hours shopping or whatever. No, you are Santa. You are elves. You are elves for all of December and November. I wouldn't trade it. I love it. But we do need, we'll get some help. But, even when we get the help, then we'll grow. And then it just is, the trade-off. And so, yes, I hear you where you're like wanting to be outside when it's like the mild weather and it's beautiful, but you can't like edit photos in your yard because you can't even see the screen. And
precisely. Yep. I have become such a grouch about the fall, right? Like everybody on the planet, Midwest or North Carolina, both, the fall is beautiful, right? The leaves are turning. Everyone's like, this is my favorite time of year. Which I partially argue with, because I think when people were children and the fall meant you had to go back to school, I was like, I don't think that was your favorite time of year. So I call some BS on that and the effect of the pumpkin spice latte on everyone's brains.
Totally.
But I have come to, I'm debating about whether I use as strong of a word as I want to use or not publicly. I have come to kind of detest the fall because people lose their freaking minds over trying to get photos with the leaves. Like it has to be. And I'm like, it's such a small period of time. I have no idea when it's actually going to happen. It depends on how much rain you had all summer. It depends on how much sun there was. Like some years, the colors are beautiful. Some years, it's just brown and dead. And I'm just like, there are plenty of other beautiful times. Why do we have to obsess over this tiny little period of time? And much like you're talking about in terms of the demand when it is so seasonal, you feel like you have to take advantage of that opportunity because you're doing so much of your revenue of that time. But at the same time, you need to go to sleep.
Yes. You're like, the leaves are pretty. Please let me sleep. People getting married.
Or like, yes, could I go tonight to a park to photograph a family session because I don't technically have a shoot booked? Yes, but I have the other 10 that still need to be edited if you want these on time, or everybody who wants like, oh, well, we only need like 15 minutes. We just want one picture for our Christmas card. It's like, it doesn't work that way.
Right. And you find the tree and the one day that it's pretty and all of that.
All the things. But yeah, I love that. I'm just thinking like, what is the real job? Yes.
Yes. What is the real job behind your job? Totally. Totally. And hearing you say about like feeling cynical about fall is a relief for me to hear because I have started to feel cynical about the holidays. I'm like, I feel like it's like I'm shy to say it because, I'm grateful for the holidays. We need the holidays. That is our busy time, and I'm so grateful that people choose to share our lotion as gifts to people. That's amazing. And I'm like, oh, just like tired already when I think about it. It's like January and I'm like, oh gosh, we have to do it again in 12 months.
Nobody can see us right now, but as we went from the beginning of this conversation kind of like sitting up and, bopping along. And now as we've talked about this, our bodies have lowered and our shoulders have rolled down and we're just like.
We're like melting. Yes. Melting like a pumpkin spice latte would.
Oh, don't. It makes me twitch. As soon as that PSL starts coming out, I'm like, no, dear God.
In like July.
Next week. It'll be tomorrow. Like, we're going to open up our phones after this. It is interesting because I keep thinking like, okay, but can we just, I want to be able to plan my way out of it, right? I want to be able to be like, okay, how can we reach out to your wholesalers ahead of time and say, hey, if you order in September, we can do this, this, and this for you. Or, how can we encourage people to prepare with us so that we don't have to lose our minds? And I don't know.
I have this thing every year. It's the same money panic. It's almost like I will be before my season comes. So it's my slowest time of the year. I will be like, but will there be Christmas this year? Will people buy gifts? Will it get cold and their hands get dry? I don't know. I don't know if it's happening this year. Every year. And also every year, I'm going to plan my way out of it every year. This year, it's the year more than ever. We got it. Like right now I'm doing it by being like, yes, we're preparing. And that magical, perfect person's going to come in and save the day. And their work is just going to make our work so much easier. And maybe it will. Maybe it will. But also, I don't know.
And the horrible thing, and I'm nodding along emphatically because that slow season happens just before things start to pick up. And so it's such a relief when things start to pick up that then, at least I do, I don't know if you do, then you start to say yes to more than you should say yes to because you're so relieved that the slowness has stopped. And you're like, oh my gosh, yes, people want us again. They're buying lotion again. Like maybe this won't continue because remember it was so slow and quiet before. So I'm going to say yes to all of the things because I don't know when they're going to come again. And then in January, you're like, okay, I'm dead to the world for a month. I can't do anything.
Yeah, it's so true. And it seems like it'd be especially true for like the photography thing because there's gigs, For me, it's like I always say yes when somebody's like, I want to order. I'm like, anytime you want an order, middle of Christmas, totally. We get that for you, But yeah, but you are. Yeah, you have to.
You're still doing a lot of work. I mean, it's just different. Like you said, what's the real job? That's it. I think we found the theme we didn't know we were going to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've tried to say that to so many people because I've had a business for almost 20 years now. And I'm like, think about this. Is your real job attaching handles? Think about it before you write that business plan and sell your whatever and cash in your whatever. Like, think about it.
I love that you just mentioned a business plan because I hear a lot of people who are thinking about going full time or who have just done it, who use that phrase, oh, I don't have a business plan or I need to have a business plan, that I'm kind of like, unless you're and I mean this in the traditional definition of the term.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
But I want to hear your take on it because my opinion is like, unless you're going to a bank and asking for a loan and you need to prove to them that you are a reliable person that they should give money to, it kind of comes as you go.
Yeah, it definitely does because you would really need to rewrite it all the time. I'm excited to hear you say, I was like, oh, you're actually saying that maybe you can just start a business, just go ahead, just do it, which I love because that's what I did. So it was like 2004, starting my lotion business. And I kept hearing, go to this business class, take this business class, write your business plan. And I was like, okay, it took me 5 years. So I was running my business for 5 years. That's pretty cool. Like the things that you have to, and I was intimidated. And if you're not good at this, I would say just have a friend that has an MBA or seems to be good with numbers, like run the costs, make sure you're making some money. But even in the beginning, if you're, not like overall making money, but say this mug, this time, this material, make sure you're covering it, make sure you're making some money in that way. But as far as like a business plan is like a piece of paper, you've thought through all these possible scenarios, you have goals. Those are lovely things. But like, truthfully, I'm just an intuitive person. And like, I am all the big picture. Like, I want to be able to control my time, and I want to be able to help people's hands, and I want to be able to not have to work a grunt job for the rest of my life. And I want to be able to save a little money. And, it's like these big picture things and these like positivity and wishes and dreams. And I mean, granted, white privilege, there is this. There is that. Like, I know this is not a possibility for everybody. If you like gotta get, your rent, you've got to do all these things and you can't sometimes. So like, I totally acknowledge that. I've been in a privileged position to be able to do this kind of dreaming, but I do run things like a lot of intuition and a lot, and I try to back it up with some numbers, but I didn't write that business plan until '09. And I haven't looked back at it, and it's 2023. So I learned a lot in that class, and I'm very glad that I went to it. And I still do have a cost card for my lotion in particular, and I've just updated it. And the more I do look at numbers, it is helpful and it's scary, but I don't like live in them all the time, because it's just not usually who I am. But business people won't tell you that.
I think it's impossible to write a business plan if you have no experience in having yet started the business. I mean, I think it's important to track things, to monitor things, to pay attention, to understand numbers, but it's kind of impossible to figure that out until you get started, because then you'll learn.
Yeah, and I think just the thing of just starting. I have two things, which is one, just get started, but also don't quit your day job until, like just that. Those are my pieces of advice I give people a lot. I mean, some people really want to quit, and that's fine. You can do that. I mean, people are doing it all the time now, but it took me years and years and years before I really let go of all that. And the good thing was I took that money that I was making and I put it right back into the business for years and years. Just like, we're not taking home any money from this. It's a lab. We're going to see how it goes,
Yeah. Well, and that frees you up also, because that's the exact same thing that I tell everybody, which is ironic because I'm over here trying to like get my way out of event photography faster than maybe financially smart. But, mental health is also real. So,
yeah,
but we had the very frank conversation of like, okay, if I do that, if I don't take any events next year, hypothetically, to all of my wedding planner friends, by all means, please still send me some work. But, we had that very real conversation of when you do know your numbers, we can look at a spreadsheet, we can look at cash flow and say, okay, if we sell this much in pots over the next 6 months, here's when we go broke, or here's how long that will get us for a reasonable salary or whatever. It took me a really long time, and I'm definitely not perfect at this whatsoever, but it helps so much to just keep reminding ourselves that numbers are just information. They're not emotion. They're not self-worth. It's just data. And it at least can help you be informed to then make decisions to keep yourself healthy and to keep yourself safe and provided for and whatever. Which, when the sales are great, it's easy to remember that. When the sales are slow,
Yes,
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it is. Like I was with my business coach, and I was starting to do cash flow like every month. And I was like, but you don't want me to put that number in there because then it doesn't look good and it doesn't make me feel good. And she's like, the point of this is not to make you feel good. And I'm like, yes, everything is for that purpose.
That's hilarious, because that's the exact opposite of the problem I had, where I would always take the cash flow sheet and zero it out to see like, okay, if nobody else ever wants to hire me again and I don't make another dime, at what point, am I broke? At what point is there no money? Oh my gosh, I should consider going and starting to apply for jobs, because if it's 6 months from now, what if it takes me 6 months to get a job? And my accountant was always like, so you've been doing this now for, however many years, whether it was 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, 13, where it's like, so consistently every year, you have actually brought in this much money. This is a reasonable number to put in here because you've actually done more than this.
Yes, that's that thing I'm talking about when it is right before the season and I'm like, is it going to happen? So I do that also, where you're just like, maybe no one ever wants lotion again. It's so scary. But then at some point you're like, entire countries are built on predicting that people are going to do business again or whatever, like entire worlds are built on this. Like we have to have faith in ourselves that it will come back around.
Yes, I think, and I'm conscious of our time now, I think the moral of the story of our conversation here is I need to introduce you to my friends in Australia and New Zealand because their winter is a different time of year.
Yes.
And so then seasonality be damned.
Exactly.
We've solved all the Cara Mae skincare problems just right there. We did.
And then
Southern Hemisphere.
You can fly there and do photography in the spring and it's their fall.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. There you go, guys. There's your answer to all the business problems, locations around the world. Thank you so much for taking the time. I have to talk to you more about lotion things because I know a lot of people in the community are like, I like that stuff. So I've got ideas.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. It's been so much fun. This is great.
Absolutely. Well, for people who hadn't heard of you, your work, all the things you're doing, where should we send them on the interwebs?
Yes, my website is caramaeskincare.com. It's CARAMAE skincare.com. And you can also follow me at Cara Mae Skincare on like Instagram and Facebook. CARAMAE skincare.
Awesome. Are you posting your pots on there too? I feel like now I'm trying to think like, okay, same place.
Yeah, I try to split it. I sometimes go pottery heavy because I'm in love with pottery, but yes, both of them are on the same Instagram. So people might be confused why it's skincare and it's pottery, but there we go.
I feel like we're not going to go down this rabbit hole because I've already taken too much of your time, but I think it's really smart because your audience is the same. I mean, you're selling lotion to potters. And who wants the effort of having to manage multiple Instagrams? Like, people are always asking me, oh, should I do a separate this? I'm like, you really want to spend that much more time on Instagram?
Yeah, that's why I have it all together. Somebody suggested it right away. Do a separate Instagram. And I'm like, I think that these people that are potters don't mind to see pottery. And I think these people that like lotion also might like pottery. So I feel very lucky that I had an audience already, like an email list. I've heard you talk about email lists before. So I was grateful that I had an email list already of lotion people, but then I've put my pottery out there to them as well. And that's helped me get the pottery off the ground, really.
That's awesome. Yeah. It all just depends on whether or not they intersect. But again, whole different conversation.
Right, exactly.
You got to get back to the pots. I don't want you just sitting on the computer too long.
Oh, yes, I will. But you would have thought I planned it, but it wasn't all planned. It just kind of looks like that now. Flying by the seat.
Hey, like we said at the very beginning, just get started, people.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I want to repeat something that Cara just said at the end there that I wish I would have made her reiterate when we were recording this, despite my focus to try and wrap up in order to give her back her studio time. She said, entire countries are built on assuming people will continue doing business. Entire countries, my friends. This right here is part of why you hear me talk so much about systems and data and tracking information. Because more often than not, as you continue to do this crazy thing of making a living from the things you make, every year you will still have moments, you might still have moments, I still have moments of thinking, oh my gosh, is it going to work? Are people going to show up? Do people still want to buy these things? Do they still like my work? And if you can quickly pull up a Google Doc or flip to a page in a journal or go to the data on your website or however you want to keep track of information and see, yes, it does work. Because you can look and see it worked last year and the year before and even the year before that, where we still made it work. And that was the year when whatever crazy thing in the world or the economy or in our own lives happened, as it's going to. Entire countries built on trusting that people keep showing up and, frankly, buying something. So we can for sure figure out some way to make these small businesses of ours work, my friends. Now, one quick time-sensitive bit of information connected to Cara. If you're in the Asheville area or fancy a road trip to North Carolina, because it is gorgeous over there, Cara will be participating in the NC Ceramics Arts Festival, which is happening super soon on October 28th. It's from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. at the North Pack Square Park in Asheville. And if you just throw in NC Ceramic Arts Festival into Google, their website should be the first to pop up for you, but just in case, the URL is North Carolina Ceramic Arts Festival.com. Ceramic is singular. I messed that up when I typed it in myself, so hence Google as the suggestion, just in case. I'm sure Cara will also be sharing about it on her Instagram, and you can find the link to that in the details of this show on whatever podcast app you use. Big thanks, as always, to our sponsor, Amico, for helping make today's episode possible.
Hi, I'm Cammie, the purchasing manager at Amico, providing you with everything you need for clay. This episode is brought to you by Amico Brent. Find your favorite Amico glaze or Brent equipment at your local distributor. Happy glazing!
Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Christy Kotzfan, with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality. Because together, we've got this.